welcome back from lunch. I'm hoping everybody had as good a lunch as I did, because Pearl Street's right there, and it's so wonderful that it was a beautiful warm day today and we could just wander out and pick our places and our groups and, you know, sort of have a conversation and continue the conversation that we've been having here in wonderful E-Town, AREDAY at E-Town. There's a certain ring to that I really love. And so welcome back to AREDAY Impact at E-Town. And so it's my greatest pleasure to introduce the next speaker, Xiye Bastida, whom we actually put on the AREDAY stage in 2019. It was for her first US conference appearance, right before she went back and met her colleagues in New York City and created that incredible climate march that had about 400,000 strong in New York and influenced about 7 million worldwide. And it was Xiye, it was Greta Thunberg, it was Al Gore, it was Leonardo DiCaprio, so many others, even some of us were there, myself included. But Xiye's gone on to extraordinary things. She was asked by Joe Biden to join the virtual global leaders summit, a climate summit. And after Joe Biden and Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin and 20 others, then Xiye spoke for the youth generation that she represents as a leader of the climate youth movement globally. She also has been recently featured at Global Citizen a number of times, including recently in France, where she was introducing Billie Eilish, and has graced the cover of Vanity Fair with Billie and some others, I noticed. And in addition, I mean, there's too many things to really list, except for to say that I'm so proud of the fact that Xiye, you recently went to the United Nations and addressed the plenary on World Peace Day with Michael Douglas. And so I will just end with that she has also been nominated to the 100 Next list from Time Magazine. So, without further ado, Xiye Bastida.
Trying to figure this out. Thank you so much, Chip. I am gonna take this. Okay. I am extremely honored to be here. I deeply, deeply appreciate everything that Chip and everybody who he's introduced me to have supported the youth climate space. We talk a lot about intergenerational collaboration, but you don't really know what that is unless you actually take on that path and help youth get to spaces where we wouldn't have been able to access otherwise. So I'm extremely grateful to be here and for all of you to show up. My story starts in Mexico. I was born and raised in a small indigenous community called the Otomi Toltec indigenous community, Otomi Toltec peoples. And I grew up in a town of about 10,000 people, where I learned about the connection that we must have with Mother Earth, where I learned about reciprocity, giving back because we take, and being grateful for everything that Mother Earth gives to us. But all around me, what I saw was disconnect, not only in my own town, but across the world. Mexico City has been taking water from my community since the 1940s, at a rate of that our aquifer sinks 1 meter per year. Our aquifer has sunk about 90 meters now. And that is changing the topography of our area, the way that we practice our culture. We used to be a fishing community, fishing people. And now the economies have transgressed to different types of things. Now we make furniture in my town. In the next town over, they make shoes. In the one over, they produce meat. And that is just one example of how the climate crisis takes culture away from us. But that also means that there's extreme levels of wisdom in our culture. In my community, in our language, the word for skin is the same as the word for the outer layer of the earth. When you hurt the earth, you're hurting yourself. And that is one example of how language ties directly with our ecosystems. And it's also similar to the word for rain. My name means soft rain, Xiye. And that shows that the connection between rain and earth and us and how it's a cycle that nourishes everything and the interconnectedness of it. My town has also been the subject of pollution. We have one of the greatest industrial corridors in the country because we generate a lot of the supplies for Mexico City and a lot of the things that people consume in Mexico City, which is a city of 27 million people. We have one of the most polluted rivers in the Americas. And my parents have done great work to clean up our river. They made sure that our wetland is now a nationally protected area, but there's a lot of corruption that keeps our space from actually being clean, actually being protected, our communities were actually being respected. And so through my journey of climate activism, I moved to New York City when I was 13 years old. So I've been in the United States for about 8 years now. Through my journey of climate activism, of seeing the climate injustice on my land, to going to New York and seeing it as a global stage to speak up about climate justice, then seeing that politicians weren't really listening to us, they hadn't been listening to environmental justice organizations, we decided to strike. So we organized, as Chip mentioned, one of the largest climate strikes in history with over 7 million people worldwide and about 300,000 in New York City. But the pandemic hit, and all of you, I'm sure, saw the power of the youth climate movement on the media, across the world, across cities. And that power was diminished due to the pandemic because we weren't able to show the world how powerful we were and how we were challenging every single aspect of the way the world is so addicted to the fossil fuel industry and fossil fuels. But that doesn't mean that the youth climate movement stopped. We didn't stop organizing, we didn't stop talking to each other, we didn't stop learning. And all of us that were in high school are now in college. I'm in my senior year. And yeah, I made it. I'm almost done with school. And we have grown into a much stronger movement. And we have also realized that we cannot keep moving forward without looking back. We have to learn from the history of the people that have come before us, not only in terms of our ancestors in indigenous cosmology, but also in terms of history of the climate movement worldwide. So today I'm going to show the sizzle reel of a film that I've been working on that is the highlight of the greatest environmental win in Mexico. 20 years ago, I don't know how to translate it into English, but the Biosfera of El Vizcaíno, the largest protected area in the Americas, was protected from a salt mine. Mitsubishi was sponsoring this salt mine that was going to be built there and destroy the ecosystem. And it was protected because not only did the local community rise up, but there were international NGOs that came together. It was the head of the Environmental Protection Agency equivalent in Mexico. And so many people that came together to say this area has to be protected. When the president of Mexico at the time came, he met with the gray whale, one of the greatest animals that live in that area, and he said, this has to be protected. The whale changed the way that a full transnational deal was gonna, take place. And that history, I didn't know about it. It's one of the things that we have to keep replicating, stories of success. And if my generation doesn't know about stories of success, we cannot create stories of success. And so today I'm going to share some of the things that we have been filming. It also follows a bit of my story. And it is not your traditional documentary. I'm going to talk a little bit about it afterwards, but I hope it inspires you to see the climate movement in a different way.
Te voy a contar un sueño que tuve una vez. Estaba sentada a la orilla de un mar que no era exactamente abierto porque allá al fondo habían unas montañas. Y estábamos sentados con tu papá, contemplando hasta la profundidad, cuando de momento vimos algo que se movió allá a lo lejos. Y seguimos mirando y saltaron del agua dos ballenas. Fue un momento tan mágico, como que las ballenas vinieron a decirnos que nos acordáramos de ellas. Nos trajeron un recuerdo sobre cómo hemos de comportarnos con el mar, con ellas y toda la vida en el planeta. Ojalá que algún día en tus recorridos tengas esa oportunidad de estar en un mar o en ese mar de mis sueños. Que te puedas conectar con las ballenas, con la madre de todas las madres. Escúchalas, que te van a traer un mensaje. Yo estoy segura que será un mensaje que necesita escuchar la humanidad.
Walking in the streets in New York is very nostalgic because when I first walked these streets in a protest, this wasn't a place that I considered home. New York City was truly the first place where I found my voice, where I realized that this is a global stage that needed to be used for good. ¿Cómo es la laguna?
Es la casa de todas las ballenas gris del mundo, porque ahí van a parir, ahí nacen, por eso son mexicanas.
Yoho, Hill.
Laguna San Ignacio is the last pristine birthing site left for the Pacific gray whale. Now, Mitsubishi wants to turn it into a salt mine.
Is some of the purest salt in the world. As one of their own company members said, too good to waste on human consumption.
But Mitsubishi was the largest company in the world. This small ragtag team, we were taking on this Goliath.
And this is a good fight, and I don't like to lose.
I just spoke from the heart.
Y esta historia está aquí. Es tu turno.
Proponer el retiro definitivo del proyecto.
te hace sentir muy pequeño. Ahí está el futuro también, ¿no?
My name is Xiye Bastida, and I'm a climate justice activist from a small town called San Pedro Tultepec in Mexico. One of my new mentors, Julia Carabias, has shown me that it is possible to come together to achieve goals that are as big as the crisis itself. Verdaderamente sentí que veo el mundo diferente. Que siento que voy a quedarme plasmada y cambiada de por vida. Things are out of balance. The Arctic is warming 4 times faster than any other point. This is one of the front lines of the climate crisis. We have so many things to learn about how to return to that balance. And I know that the story of the gray whales is part of that solution.
So that's a bit of it, and I'll just say a few comments before I pass it on to the next speaker. This project was, I always feel that whenever I do something, it calls me. It's part of my path. And this project didn't feel like that at the beginning, because I was telling the director, I don't think I'm the right person for this. I don't know anything about whales. I always say that we shouldn't put that much emphasis on the Arctic because the climate crisis is happening in our homes. And he said, give it a try, because it could change the way that you see the world. And I did. And I went and I met the gray whale, and whales feel 60 times deeper than humans. When you feel the love of a whale, it is the most engulfing thing you could ever imagine. And the whales are actually, the mother whales are bringing their calves to the boat so that you can touch them. They're trusting you with that. They're trusting you with their kids. And they're doing this full migration to the Arctic. And some whales are not finding food there anymore. Some of them are migrating 200 kilometers outside of their natural migration pattern to find food in different places in Seattle. When they pass through San Francisco, there's, at one time, there's 50,000 ships in the ocean every day, 50,000 ships. And so they're being hit by ships, they can't find food, their birthplaces are being threatened all the time, even if this one is protected. And so for me, I saw this story as a story of the materialization of interconnectedness and how we truly are connected, not only as humans, but our natural ecosystem. Like I said, I used to say the Arctic, it pissed me off to see the picture of the polar bear on ice and that people said that's the climate crisis, because I thought it was taking attention away from us. But I did realize now that that is the story that people know. And the #1 rule of climate communications is to meet people where they're at. So if the public is there in the Arctic, we need to bring a story that also shows that part to them. So for me, this story is incredibly powerful because it meets people where the public is at, but it also shows this depth of environmental wins, of community wins, of the past and the future, and everything coming together to show that it is possible to win on all fronts. So I'm incredibly proud of this project. Thank you for being the first audience publicly to ever see it. And it's going to be shown across the world starting early next year in March. So I hope to see you in that path. We're going to have an impact campaign, and everybody is welcome. If you have any projects relating to the ocean or community work, you're welcome to join us in this path of changing narrative for the general public. Thank you.